Well, hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us for this best practice session. This was originally recorded for our DevSec conference, where thousands of developers joined Sneak and our partners to talk further about the industry. We presented this best practices session in our virtual booth, and we're really excited to re-record some of the themes as we feel like they're really pertinent for everyone in our industry to have a sense for. My name is Brian Breckenridge. I head Sneak Impact, which is our environmental, social, and governance programming and operating and mental model here at Sneak, where we're focused a lot on advancing further diversity, equity, and inclusion across our industry, in addition to bringing digital capacity to nonprofits and lots of other organizations that are positively affecting society. So the theme here for this discussion was for some of our people experts, our talent experts here at Sneak, to suggest some of their approaches, philosophies, tactics, all the things that they're doing to make Sneak a more diverse, more inclusive, and a company that promotes a sense of belonging to all of our 700 plus employees. This session is starring two folks that I've come to really appreciate, even though we've only met virtually as colleagues for the past few months. Taiwo Omotayo is joining us from the +44, and he is a senior technical recruiter here. And Heidi King Underwood also joining us from the +44 over in the UK, and is principal recruiter and really responsible for a lot of the go-to-market and EMEA and APJ, which is the acronyms for different theaters in Europe and Asia for us. She comes to the company with a really strong sense of allyship, working with underrepresented candidates, reducing the unconscious bias that can exist in the process with a solid career and tenure in this space. Certainly as Taiwo comes to this work as well, has joined us to make the R&D recruiting at the organization even stronger, more inclusive. These two, as we were warming up for today's session, had said they'd never been busier. I know that we as a company have gone from a couple hundred sneakers to 700 plus sneakers in only about 2 years, 2.5 years. And so really wanted to give props to Taiwo for different programs that have, I would say, emboldened our outreach programs and centered more of our focus on creating jobs for underrepresented groups. And make certain that our teams aren't homogeneous. As we all know, diverse teams are those that are performing better, creating better decision-making patterns, typically more deeply connected to the work that they're doing in their colleagues and doing their best work. And so that's what we're working on here today. I would open by just asking Heidi, can you tell us more about why you come to this work of making certain that our people practices here are inclusive and promoting inclusion and belonging?
Absolutely. Well, I think Sneak is one of those companies who going through that startup environment, growing on a huge trajectory, right? I think we've grown 400%. It's absolute madness. And I think it's just about promoting that inclusive environment of equal opportunity. It's constantly delivering those results to make sure that we are a part of D&I and not just using it as, oh yeah, we've got a D&I practice, but actually not living by it. And it's just being that advocate internally to make sure that everyone stays on that same path. And offer advice, I suppose, and structure to people who might be new to it. It's just offering that ability to say, yeah, I'm here to help you, maybe give you ideas and just help keep you on that path as well.
And you were seeing some of the work that was occurring here and said, I know that that's going to be a place that's receptive to this perspective, this way of operating. Is that kind of the why it was a culture fit when you were looking to even join here?
Absolutely. I joined as a contractor, and when you're contracting, you've got to go so quick and you're working at pace, but yet even at that pace, it was right. Let's always take that step back and focus on what are we looking at? Are we looking at underrepresented talent, especially go to market tech sales? We don't do college courses on this. We don't have the US centric attitude towards sales. It's right. Where can we lean for talent? Sales, females. It's a very, very understated arena, getting sales women or, non-binary, whichever way you want to look at it, trying to get them into the workplace and give them the best shot. It's the way that Sneak has always been at the forefront of that. It's okay, what can we do? We shout about initiatives, things like you don't have to tick every box. We're willing to have those conversations and invest in you. So when you see that, you really want to be a part of it and I suppose navigate around that.
I really appreciate hearing it. And then people get that are listening to today's panel get a chance to know your perspective just a little bit more and what those are rooted in. So Taiwo, over to you. What is it that drives you to be more inclusive in the work that you're doing here? And then maybe just a word on why it made sense for you to join this organization, this rocket ship that we're all a part of.
Yeah, I'll start from the bottom up, actually. So my story is actually very similar to Heidi's, in the sense that we both started off as contractors. And I think, her time was probably different to mine, in a sense that we were probably just like 150 as a business. And we were trying to scale up at the time and run at a bit more pace than we were going. But it's similar in the sense of, you come in and you do a job and you just want to sort of get that done. I think what made sense for me to join was Sneak catching the importance of representation, inclusion, and diversity at a very critical time. It was a time where we really wanted to blast off. And, when you talk about these groups that are quite underrepresented, it's a project in itself to just build the pipeline to even just get you the sort of talent you're looking for. And so for Sneak, a company that wants to scale, to slow down and say, actually, we don't want to be in a place in a year's time where we've hit 700 people, but there's no representation, there's no diversity, there's no inclusion. So for me, seeing that as a contractor, when I was offered my role here to help build that initiative as well, I didn't think twice, right? And it's been a great journey since, because whether it's within my team, experts like Heidi is actually the expert, are being brought in on a day-to-day basis. You just get to see the changes being implemented, and it's not just a tick box exercise. But I'm really passionate about it, because I've worked in a lot of other startups where it's an afterthought. It's something that you tick a box with, and you don't see the action behind the sort of the talk, should I say? But I feel like Sneak has definitely gone the extra mile to make sure that we're not just ticking a box here, where we're holding ourselves to a high standard, and we're making sure that we're bringing in the best talent, but also trying to create opportunities for people who actually feel like, well, I'm in an industry where typically it's driven by men, it's driven by a particular type of man even. How do we break those molds? It's by creating things from the ground up, so that we actually help people on a career trajectory that would see them go from, I knew nothing and now I'm an expert. And
Amazing.
I feel like Sneak does that on a daily basis.
I think there's lots of peers of Sneaks in the industry who have the intent, as we've all spoken about before, to diversify their teams. And now it's a little bit less about the why we should diversify the teams, even though some people have yet to read the research, they have yet to understand the science that really bears that aspiration out as being a thing to do. But the question is the how. And so I think that for the next 15 or so minutes on this best practice session, let's start with what should you first focus on, and whichever of you wants to run with this question. But I would imagine a handful of years ago, Sneak was saying, where do we even start? We want to be diverse from when we're 100 or less all the way through the journey. What's a first step that an organization should focus on to really pursue a world-class D&I or inclusive hiring
I'll give you a
approach?
brief overview, because like you said, I probably started earlier, but I feel like Heidi will have a very clear answer on this. But I think for me, when we were at a place where it was like, okay, how do we diversify the workforce? It was, okay, let's just educate ourselves, right? Let's talk about these things internally. Let's have the hard conversation, and then see how that drives our, let's see actually if there's a real desire for people to make these changes. And I think that was the first thing we did, was educate ourselves. And then honestly, it was interacting with other people as well. How do you do these things? If we're asking ourselves, if we're having to educate ourselves, that means we don't know it, right? So asking people who actually have a diverse workforce and educating ourselves through that way as well was very important. And not just assuming that because, I'm a Black recruiter, I know how to hire Black people into tech, or, because Heidi's a woman, she must know how to do it. It's actually, there must be a more careful, tailored approach to actually approaching D&I.
I appreciate that, through self-education, through benchmarking, through reaching out to peers, to being humble, to not pretending to know everything and remaining closed, but remaining open. Heidi, what would you suggest for other companies listening that are now on that beginning of that journey?
Yep. Taiwo hit it on the head, right? It's education around inclusiveness. It's assessing, right, where is our D&I at right now? Raising awareness. It's looking at then what are the areas that you want to focus on from that. You don't want to tackle everything at first. You don't want to be like, right, we're gonna get more races. We're gonna look at ethnicity. We're gonna look at gender. Now we're gonna look at disability. Now we're gonna look at, all of these different backgrounds. And you think, actually, no, let's just have a look at what are we focusing on first. How do we then look at what we're doing? Is it that we are not looking at different genders because we have unconscious bias? Okay, let's focus on unconscious bias. Is it, okay, I'm not looking at people maybe from an underrepresented background because I don't have that cultural awareness? Okay, then we need to focus on cultural awareness. So it's not trying to tick off every single item at the beginning. It's doing a D&I survey, taking in the information, receiving the feedback of what's most important to the people who are in the business right now. And then it's focusing on each step as you go. That's the only way that you're going to kick off those foundational movements.
So it felt to me like you have a gut check initially. You have like, you're looking around, oh wait, the team is not that diverse. The team must have walls built around it, or people may be falling into old default patterns of just hiring those that they've gone to school with, or that whatever it was, you've not interrupted the pattern enough to move into a more diverse or more inclusive approach. And it sounds like education, internally, externally, with partners, with others that are doing diverse and inclusive hiring well, was important. But then I heard quantification and prioritization. Any thoughts then on the way that ongoing efforts, as you've now begun to quantify, oh wait, we are light in areas that we're proposing, that we're making progress against. Is there an ongoing series of decisions or thoughts or programming focus areas that y'all would like to share for folks that maybe haven't begun to educate? They've gotten their employees involved in this. They realize it's priority. They've started to quantify and realize the numbers aren't quite where they want them. What types of decisions do they need to make at that point?
Yep, I'll take this one. So I think you got to divide it into two, right? It's recruit and then retain. So number one, what are your efforts to attract and to recruit? And then what are your actual ongoing efforts look like from identification and retention, right? There needs to be a growth area internally as well. So I think, those two areas are really how you need to divide it. The ongoing things that you need to focus on, or that I think we focused on really well, is from the beginning is everything around, how I mentioned a second ago, unconscious bias. We focused on having an internal guide, which we have all of our hiring managers sign up to, which is, I promise to be unbiased. I promise to come in with my best mind. I promise to explore all questions. I promise to, basically give their best to the candidate and be a diversity champion. On the attraction areas, we shout about what we have on offer here at Sneak. You know how I mentioned about women in sales? We are very much, hey, we understand that women love to tick every box before they apply for a role. Actually, here at Sneak, you don't need to do that. We will absolutely invest back in you if you take that step to walk forward to us. And then on the retention piece, it's identifying what do people internally actually need to feel like they matter? What are we giving back? And it's things like our SRGs, right? It's our resource groups. We have plenty of those, which is around diversity, giving back. I know sustainability is another one that you focus on, Bri. And it's giving that platform to go, okay, here's a resource group for you, but here's an opportunity for you to grow and to develop internally. And in turn, we offer those opportunities to retain that talent.
That's incredible. Why do you think, Taiwo, that the recruit consciousness and the retain consciousness kind of side by side are important, as you've been here now for a good period of time? Why is it important to care about both there, and your tactics in there?
No, because the basic mistake that you can make is, if we get a woman in, or if we get as many women and as many Black people, and as change up a race, and it's all balanced, everyone will be happy, right? And that's it. We've got a balanced workforce, we've got diversity, we've got inclusion, and that's it. That's what we have to do, right? And actually, it goes back to that thing of representation. Where are these people within the business, right? What initiatives are you putting in place so that people feel like their ethnicity, their background, their beliefs matter at work. And I feel like a lot, it's easy to just go into the recruitment part is easy. That's what we do. You can put pressure on us to get as many women for you as possible. And you can even just, bypass processes and get people in. But it's actually, how do you keep those people so they don't feel like they were part of like a tick box exercise? And now that you've got them on board, that's all, it's hands off and they just need to find their way in at Sneak. So I think it's a very key aspect of not just thinking about the recruitment, but the retention piece is possibly more important, because people will only be happy at work when they feel like, actually, I can see that someone is progressing in this particular role that looks like me, or that, is my gender, or whatever it is. And so I can aspire to that same level of like, I don't want to use the word greatness because it sounds so extreme, but just like, I can see that there's growth in this company. And people are being rewarded for good work, not just because there's something or they tick a box, right? And there was just a little piece I was going to add to that as well. What Heidi was saying is, set yourself achievable targets, right? Don't go in and think you're going to solve diversity in one sitting. It's not going to happen. It will also show like that you've not taken in the education piece properly. I think you set achievable targets, small, but some that you can achieve and hit as soon as possible, and then also obviously improve on. But also the ones that you won't find yourself compromising for, right? So you won't just bring someone in because they're a woman and bypass a whole process because you think that's what you need to do. But I think where Heidi and the team have been amazing is that unconscious bias training is constant. And people are having to sort of check themselves on if they're doing things the proper way, or not just to just get people in.
I really appreciate hearing that. Keep going, Heidi. Yeah.
Yes, just to add to that, because I think absolutely 100%, but we also give that platform every single day. So just to call out some events that we've done over the last, because we were just talking about that Sneak for Good and the efforts that we have with the SRGs. It's things like we give a platform to certain members of our community, which is, hey, let's have an actual presentation about Eid. Let's talk about Juneteenth. Let's talk about LGBTQ+. Let's talk about, let's celebrate International Women's Day. Let's celebrate Pride Month. Let's do Black Lives Matter. Let's be a part of these. But it's the platform that is given to each of those celebrations that then you don't get a chance to let that bias creep in, because every day we're celebrating a different part of the community that makes Sneak. And by creating those resources, it's become, and I put that down to our people ops team and, people like you, Bri, who are out there every day thinking, what more can we do? And it's people putting their hand up and saying, like we've now got a Big Mamas group, which is for people who are parents, women who are, birth givers, who are either new mums, first time mums, maybe well and truly established parents out there, but it's that kind of group which says, hey, there's a community here for you. There's a safe place, whoever you are, whatever background, whatever interest. We've either got a Slack channel, an SRG, or a celebration day in place. And it's that kind of visibility, I think.
And that, I think, at least my own impression is, if you enter a place and you see, and you're just, well, maybe you're just a candidate and you're looking at an organization, but you see people maybe that resemble your background or your traditional path or less traditional path into that seat, you're going to feel that community. You're going to feel that sense of worth, and you're going to get feedback from somebody that's instantly credible, but because perhaps they have a similar approach to life that you have. And I think that's why these programs, once they've started, if they're rooted in that authentic desire to diversify and create that community, that family, then it does start to feed on itself, and the retained feeling of high belonging makes the candidate experience or the candidate interaction more fulfilling, and maybe turns up that magnetism. But then when somebody comes in the door, they feel at home, they do their best work, then of course they're growing. To Taiwo's point of evolving, getting promoted, getting rewarded, and getting more responsibility and an ability to share your truth in the environment that you're in and grow in that. I just wanted to point out quickly before I go to the last question, the code of conduct per se for recruiters, that daily re-upping, that promise, I think is an interesting thing for companies to consider here. And certainly a formal bias training that's tailored to your language and your organization is important, and a drumbeat to continue to hear in companies. And then it's just that helping people feel like they matter. I was just going to make certain that was very, very clear, and that can be done through programming. It can be done through the intangible pieces, just the behaviors that people exhibit, and creating a caring culture, as the value of here at Sneak, care deeply, kind of reigns supreme in the cultural context. I did appreciate that achievable targets. Does anybody want to sound off at all on measurement? I know that's really important for people to be more and more public about their measurement, but even internally, setting goals in certain areas at the right level and making those goals visible for people. Did we want to touch on measurement for a few minutes, or did people just want to wrap up with other ideas or thoughts that they would want to share with other companies trying to be more diverse and more inclusive? So either measurement or just a wrap up thought. Either one would work.
And then do a wrap up if anything. I think with measurement, like I said, just it's setting. It's first of all stepping back and just looking, okay, where do we lack diversity the most in our business, right? So we have several departments. You can call it R&D, you can call it engineering, but it's actually understanding where do we find that actually we just have one type of person in the business, right? And then setting a goal against that, right? Because it's easy to say, oh no, you should have a 35% goal by the end of the year or something. But actually, where does that go into? If it all goes into people ops, it doesn't mean you've diversified the workforce. It means you just brought in more people into people ops that help your diversity numbers, yes. And so I think it's just that piece where it's like, look into every department you have. Typically, historically, most like women, for example, are in people ops or recruitment or something of that nature. And so for you to say, I want more women in recruitment would just sound crazy, right? So you want to go into the harder areas where it's like, in fact, we might not find a woman in this area, right? But how do we open up doors so that we actually get women into those areas? Is where you set your sort of numbers and your targets. And so I don't think it's easy to quantify it generally, because I think you have to take that holistic approach to your business before you do that.
Amazing. Any other thought on measurement, Heidi, before we go back and round the horn on wrap up?
Absolutely. I think another one that you should measure is what efforts or what conversations are you having out there externally right now versus which ones you could be. We focus very much on BYP, which is Black young professionals. We focus very much in Sisters in Sales, which is focusing on Black females within the sales industry. It's what conversations are you actually having right now externally with people who might come from underrepresented talent, right? So it's one thing to look at the opportunities. Okay, we've got very few females in sales. Let's go and attract them. Okay, but what about the underrepresented talent, which can fill entry-level roles and plug that gap, right? Well, what can we do to actually assist better from a ethical perspective, really, when you look at the roots of it? What opportunities are you able to offer? And which ones are you not taking advantage of that you could be better as a company? So it's looking at those conversations. If we're having no conversations right now with people from, I don't know, a female dominated background or a male dominated, if you're a very female orientated company, or for people from different ethnicities, start measuring actually how many conversations you start to have, because that can help to snowball as well.
So it's looking at the general plus the department level, actual gender, actual racial makeup of a team. But then it's also understanding that measurement not only can be against those demographic data points, but also the actions being taken to further diversify. If you decided that's your goal, having discussions in the right places and measuring that and incenting people to move toward those behaviors will in fact likely bear more fruit than if you're saying something and doing no actions and having no measurement against the behaviors or the actions being taken to truly materialize the goal. So that seems really logical to me. Any thoughts, Taiwo, as we kind of go out, knowing that other companies that are trying to be where we are or catch up or perhaps even inspire us, but needed one more nugget, one more piece of inspiration to go out and do this important work as we're building our teams?
No, I'll just say honestly, don't be too hard on yourselves. It's a very difficult market. We are all learning from it, and so it's just understand your business needs, run at the pace that your business needs it to run, and then just be be intentional about, diversity. Don't do it because everyone else is doing it, or because you think it's the right, well, hopefully you think it's the right thing to do, but you just think, oh, I should be ticking this box, because then it will quickly show. If you're intentional about diversity and inclusion, it will show in the way your business operates. It will show in the things that you encourage in your business. Like I said earlier, recruitment is the easy part. You can go out and get people. It's how do you make sure that actually the things you're selling these people to bring them in are sort of evidenced in their day-to-days whilst they're working. I'll keep it short and sweet.
Oh, I appreciate that greatly. That was a tremendous wrap up. That was really solid. Heidi, over to you. Final words.
Oh no, mine's exactly the same as Taiwo, right? But all I'd say is the only way that I think I have a better understanding of D&I is through education. I've been brave enough to ask the awkward questions, why aren't we attracting people from a diverse background? Why would I want to work here as a female? Why wouldn't I want to? The same with Taiwo, I'm sure, as a Black person. Why would I want to work here? Why wouldn't I want to? It's kind of like having uncomfortable conversations and educating yourself around that, and being willing to look at yourself and be like, I'm probably not doing my best here, and just take those baby steps. Like Taiwo said, don't be too hard on yourself, right? The next edition will be how to retain diverse talent.
That's right. The 2.0 webinar that we put on, the best practice session, will be on that retain side. And I'm proud to say, as a new person, I feel there's a lot of good work happening there, a lot of investment, a lot of authentic effort. And then certainly even the calendaring, and even the incentives, and even the celebrations, and the things that I feel like Sneak is indexing highly on. And I'm seeing who's getting hired to make that stuff, even more embedded, even more fundamental, so that things like the celebration of a certain group lasts throughout the year in lots of other ways too. They're not just blips and flashes in the pan, which I really, really appreciate. So thank you very much, team. This has been a really fun best practice session. It's good to see both of you in cyberspace again. And hearts back to you. And I look forward to getting this out on the blog and sharing it worldwide. Thanks very much. Have good days.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.